Good, happy Tuesday morning, April 6th, 2021. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Tuesday morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Tuesday morning, so let's begin. First up, we're going to begin with a look at your COVID-19 numbers in New Hampshire. Let's take a look at those right now. And here is a look at those COVID-19 numbers for all of you right now. There are 86,125 number of people in New Hampshire have tested positive for COVID-19. There are 1,249 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. There are 83 current number of hospitalizations for COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And that is a look at your COVID-19 numbers for New Hampshire. Woman killed, man found unconscious in dairy fire. Public's help requested. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
When most people think of chimney damage, they think fire. But the biggest threat to your chimney is that real.
Chris McCool fights back tears as he describes what he saw while over his mom's last night for Easter.
I don't know what happened. I just know it was awful. And, I got to keep reminding myself that I tried my hardest.
Next door, flames spread quickly at 27 Mount Pleasant Street in Derry. But before that, investigators say gunshots were heard.
I heard it was either like a bang or a loud boom.
McCool says he ran over and began kicking in doors, looking for 53-year-old Lynn Marie Vienna and her husband, 57-year-old Manuel Vienna.
Could tell that he was breathing. He was struggling to breathe. The smoke. There was so much smoke.
McCool found Manuel lying on the floor.
There was a pool of blood under his head. I tried to pull him out. I tried to pull him out. I kept screaming for help. It was so hard to breathe. The smoke is just so strong. 3
Derry police officers were able to drag Manuel out. Those officers had to go to the hospital, but are okay. The Attorney General's office says Manuel is in a Boston hospital with life-threatening injuries. His wife, Lynn Marie, pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators say her death is suspicious and an autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow.
The New Hampshire Fire Marshal's office is working actively with the Derry Police Department to investigate all of the facts and circumstances surrounding the fire itself.
McCool has known the family for years.
Just saying prayers for him and just hoping that he pulls through.
Authorities say there's no threat to the public, but Derry police would like to hear from anyone who knows where Manuel was on Sunday, as well as any neighbors who may have captured anything on surveillance cameras. In Derry, Mike Cronin, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. State to host third mass vaccination site at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
When it's time to invest in a new roof, be smart and look at more factors than just the final price. Not all roofs are the same, and not all roofers are the same.
The state now offering to move up vaccine appointments to this weekend for its third mass vaccination clinic at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Griffith.
And I'm Jennifer Vaughn. There are now 12,000 appointments set for Saturday and Sunday at the Speedway. And for those interested, they can call 211 or change their appointment in Vinnie by searching 03307, the zip code for Loudoun. The state is only offering the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which means no one under the age of 18 is eligible for appointments at this clinic.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Officials plan to update incompetent report on infectious control at Veterans Home in Tilton. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Their reviews? Our reviews.
I'm so happy.
Find out what we're all about at adamvroofing.com.
State health officials are now updating their recent report on infection control practices at the State Veterans Home in Tilton, where 37 residents died in a COVID-19 outbreak late last year. A section of that report that was left blank will now include a summary of steps taken to improve issues observed by a VA infection prevention nurse who visited the home during the outbreak. As News 9 reported last week, that nurse's observations were sent to elected officials in early December, but at last week's pandemic briefing, HHS Commissioner Lori Shibinette said her department did not receive that information.
The email may have gone to the governor's office or elected officials, but the Department of Health and Human Services has no oversight over the Veterans Home, and the federal government has no obligation and no reason to really send us a copy of that report.
At the briefing, Governor Chris Sununu acknowledged receiving the email. It's not clear why it was not circulated more widely, but the Veterans Home says the issues observed by the VA nurse, including infection control breakdowns and test turnaround delays, were addressed almost immediately. Today in Manchester, Senator Maggie Hassan visited a separate facility, the VA Medical Center, to highlight efforts to get the COVID-19 vaccine to veterans. She says the federal delegation first became aware of infection control issues at the State Veterans Home late last year, and that's part of why the VA got involved there in the first place.
We raised those concerns. I think it's really important now to look back and see what happened to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again.
In Manchester, Adam Sexton, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Accused Pelham church shooter asked judge to rescue herself from his case. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
When it's time to invest in a new roof, be smart and look at more factors than just the final price. Not all roofs are the same.
I'm expecting you to protect me, Your Honor. I'm expecting you to abide by the laws as well as the state.
Dale Holloway had strong words for the judge assigned to his case.
Then I want you to recuse yourself, Your Honor, because you're not being fair.
The fact that you disagree with my order doesn't mean that I should recuse myself.
After allegedly opening fire at a wedding in Pelham in 2019, shooting the bishop and the bride, authorities say Holloway viciously attacked his public defender inside the Valley Street jail. Holloway denied the attack and now says he should be released on bail so he can have access to resources to prepare his defense.
My conclusion is that you should be detained pending trial.
You're punishing me without me being guilty. You're punishing me, and that's for the jurors to decide whether I'm innocent or guilty.
Holloway told the court he contracted coronavirus in jail that has compromised his mental function and at the very least should be remanded to a psychiatric hospital. The judge refused.
It's enough for the two white guys that filed, but it's not enough for the black guy that filed? You funny, because I already got it. I got a copy of the document, Your Honor. That's what shows your bias, prejudice, and racism.
The judge offered to arrange for supplemental counsel for Holloway. He did accept that. The trial set to get underway in June. Reporting live this evening, Amy Cavino, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. COVID-19 variants likely contributing to increase in cases, hospitalizations, according to CDC. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
When it's time to invest in a new roof, be smart and look at more factors than just the final price. Not all roofs.
According to the CDC, COVID-19 cases are increasing nationally, up by about 7%.
We know that these increases are due in part to more highly transmissible variants, which we are very closely monitoring.
The CDC says every state has some form of a COVID variant. Here at home, New Hampshire has identified 138 cases of B117, also known as the UK strain. 4 cases of the California strains known as B1427 and 429, and 2 cases of P1, also known as the Brazilian strain. Officials say it appears transmission is being driven by the younger population.
We are learning that many outbreaks in young people are related to youth sports and extracurricular activities.
Travel and general COVID fatigue also play a role, says Dr. Jose Mercado of Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center.
And so far, the data is reassuring that the vaccines are able to neutralize these new variants.
Which is why Dr. Mercado says we are now in a race to get as many shots into arms as possible before these variants start branching out, creating newer strains.
That's the best way to really defeat that, because we've heard about herd immunity and achieving herd immunity. That's really the best way to help break the chain of transmission.
Now, symptoms between these variants and the original COVID strain are pretty similar, so there's no way of self-diagnosing which one you may have. Doctors say that can only happen in a lab through gene sequencing on a positive test. Reporting live, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. CDC COVID-19 cases increase in young adults. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us as we start another week together here. And we begin tonight with a new alarm involving the coronavirus here in the U.S. Spikes in new cases and hospitalizations in certain parts of the country. And news tonight on this double mutant strain, as it's being called, being seen in California. And that new guidance when it comes to how the virus is spread. Once again, looking at surfaces versus spreading through particles in the air. And what the CDC is now saying. Dr. Jha is standing by to answer your questions on that. And it all comes amid these fears that we could be on the verge of a fourth wave in this country. As states open up tonight, these images of the largest sporting event in a year. Crowds arriving for the Texas Rangers home game in Arlington. The first Major League Baseball game to open at full capacity. Nearly 40,000 fans in the stands. A lot of folks there skipping the masks. And it comes after the Easter holiday and a record number of people traveling over the weekend. 6 million screened at the airports from Thursday to Sunday. That's the highest since this pandemic began. And as cases rise, authorities are taking note of the number of younger people getting this. At least 7 variants are circulating in this country, and that new double mutant variant now identified in California. So the race to vaccinate tonight to try to stay ahead of these variants, a record 4 million doses given in just one 24-hour period over the weekend. And look at the numbers. 103,829,000 have received at least one dose, more than 40% of adults. We're going to unpack it all for you tonight, including that update from the CDC, surfaces versus particles in the air. And ABC's Kaylee Harton leads us off from Texas.
Tonight in Texas, nearly 40,000 baseball fans filling the stands for the Rangers home opener.
We were going to go to opening day last year, but then everything got shut down. So we've been waiting a year for this.
The first team in sports to reopen its stadium at full capacity, with masks required. even the president calling it a mistake.
As long as everybody follows the rules like they're supposed to, we're good.
But many fans not wearing masks. A packed stadium, and over the weekend, packed airports. 6 million Americans traveling over the Easter holiday, the busiest weekend of the pandemic. Rising cases, some experts fear a looming surge.
We're just at the beginning of this surge. We haven't even really begun to see it yet.
Deaths from COVID are climbing across 18 states, and the number of Americans going into hospitals up in 16 states, with a 23% jump in the upper Midwest. The mayor of Detroit with a warning.
If this triples again in another 2 or 3 weeks, we are talking about the kinds of levels we saw last March and April when people were on gurneys in hallways.
44-year-old Tina Catron, a healthy mother of 2, grateful to be back home from Beaumont Hospital in Detroit after getting pneumonia from COVID.
All the thoughts went through my head. You know, what if I don't see my kids again? What if I don't see my husband again?
The CDC seeing more cases in younger adults who are less likely to be vaccinated.
We know that these increases are due in part to more highly transmissible variants, which we are very closely monitoring.
Researchers studying whether a new variant with 2 mutations, also known as the double mutant strain, is more dangerous. It was first seen in India and has now been confirmed in California. And now in a race against the variants, this week 14 states are joining 22 others in opening vaccinations to anyone over 16. Tonight, one family urging everyone to take this seriously. Their 75-year-old mother, Air Force veteran Denise Drews, wanted the vaccine, but got sick before she could get one and did not survive.
What we had been hoping for was finally here, but it wasn't meant to be for her. Everybody's antsy to be back to normal, but for people who have lost a loved one, our normal will never be the same.
That one family offering a bit of a warning there. And Kaylee joins us now from outside that stadium in Arlington, Texas. We can hear the music from the stadium, Kaylee, and I think folks are really going to be torn on these images tonight. We all want to get there again. The debate, of course, is how to do it, how soon, and the CDC has been firm on this, suggesting it's too soon for full, packed crowds. And they're out with a new study tonight, actually, that looks at just one bar, for example, that had reopened in Illinois and the potential impact one establishment can have on an entire community.
Yeah, David, you see the real ripple effect here. There was one indoor event at a bar that led to 46 infections. One school had to shut down, and one resident of a long-term care facility ended up in the hospital. 17 of the people who got sick, they didn't even go to that party. Researchers are pointing to limited mask use there and no consistent physical distancing. David.
All right, Kaylee Hartung from Texas tonight.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News.
Okay, and there, thank you for watching this edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and see you back here tomorrow for another newscast. Goodbye, everyone.